Whenever we look at biochemistry, what we really are doing is leading up to the properties of water. And water is an essential component of life. And the way that water is structured molecularly is very important for how it functions. And so this goes to one of the key ideas in biology, which is that the structure of something relates to its function. So we know that water is important and it does a lot for us. It lubricates joints, it helps us to convert food, it helps to deliver oxygen, and it's really a major component of our bodies. And so we definitely need it for a lot of things. But just in the world in general, water has a lot of important properties, and those all relate back to the structure. Water is composed of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. The oxygen atom is in the middle and is covalently bonded to each of the hydrogen atoms. And so the hydrogen atoms have 1 valence electron, which they share with the oxygen, and the oxygen has 6 valence electrons, and so it also shares 1 with each of the hydrogens. However, they share the electrons unevenly, and so this creates a polar bond. We talked about before how if a molecule is bigger, so it has more protons, then it kind of hogs the electrons or shares them unevenly. So I said this was kind of like if you share with a younger sibling and you don't really share very nicely, and this is kind of how oxygen shares with hydrogen. Whenever a molecule is polar, that means that it has an uneven distribution of charge. So you can see on the picture how the red atom, which is oxygen, is negatively charged or partially negative, and then the 2 hydrogens are partially positive. This is because, again, the oxygen hogs the electron, and so it makes it more negative overall. Why this is important is because then once you have that polarity in those partial charges, then you can start to form intermolecular bonds. And intermolecular means between molecules, and so these are forces that happen between molecules, and they happen between a hydrogen and an oxygen of 2 different water molecules. So hydrogen bonds occur between the positive hydrogen of one water and the negative oxygen of another water. These are pretty strong bonds, not quite as strong as ionic and covalent bonds, so they can be broken and water molecules are rearranged, but they're still pretty strong all in all, and they have a nice force of attraction, which leads to, again, all of the other properties of water that we see. The properties of water, the biggest one is the polarity, which is the uneven sharing of electrons and partial charges. This leads into the hydrogen bonding, which is the intermolecular attractions. And because of this, then we have these properties. So we have cohesion, adhesion, high specific heat, capillarity, surface tension, density of water, and universal solvent. We're going to talk about each one of these. There's a video, so feel free to take a look at a video that explains a little bit more about water's polarity, and I have some more linked on Blackboard as well. So take a minute and draw in your notes what hydrogen bonding looks like. So again, it takes place between the slightly negative oxygen of one water molecule and the positive hydrogens of another. So the first property of water we'll look at is cohesion. This is an attraction between molecules of the same type, so 2 water molecules. So this is the formation of hydrogen bonds between 2 water molecules. The reason why cohesion matters is it helps to form water droplets. It also relates to surface tension and capillary action, which we will look at. It's basically how does water stick to itself, or how does it stick together. The next property is adhesion. Adhesion is the attraction between molecules of different substances. So water in glass, water in your skin, water in the table, water in paper. Adhesion explains why a meniscus forms in the graduated cylinder. So you can see that over here. And you can see how the meniscus forms. And remember that we're supposed to read at the bottom of the meniscus. But this happens because the water is has adhesion to the graduated cylinder itself. And so the water pulls up, but it also still sticks with itself because of cohesion, so it forms the meniscus. Adhesion also helps to contribute to capillary action, which is how water is pulled up a tube. And it also is, again, related to how it sticks to a vessel or to glass or to something that isn't water. All right, so surface tension is the next one. This is really just cohesion on the surface of water. So this is how water forms a film at the top. Things like small insects can walk across it, but this is really just the surface of water, and it's as a result of the hydrogen bonding. Now, the reason why this matters, or when we look at it, is we say, how does this hydrogen bonding basically contribute then to the high boiling point of water, things like that. Another property of water we look at is the density of water. Liquid water has a density of 1 gram per milliliter, and what happens whenever it's frozen, so most things whenever they freeze actually get more dense, but in the case of water it gets less dense, and this is because with the hydrogen bonds, whenever the liquid freezes, then the hydrogen bonds keep the water molecules further apart than what they would actually be in liquid. So because the bonds are further apart, then that means you can fit less molecules in a certain amount of space, and so the density is less, so that's why ice floats on water. The reason why this is really important in biology is because it allows wildlife to survive in the pond underneath the ice. So if the pond froze from the bottom up, then it wouldn't be very successful for life. All right, capillary action. So capillary action is how water or some liquid is drawn up of a tube. It's a tendency of the liquid to rise or fall based upon cohesion, adhesion, and surface tension. So adhesion pulls it up because water or liquid sticks to another surface. Cohesion keeps the water column together, and then surface tension keeps it together as well. This example just shows water versus mercury. So mercury doesn't have, it sticks to itself really well, but it doesn't stick to other things very well. Capillary action allows the flow of water and solutions through plants and different vessels. All right, specific heat. Specific heat of water is pretty high. This means that it takes a lot of energy to raise the temperature of water or to lower the temperature of water. And the reason for this is because it takes energy to break the hydrogen bonds. This is important because it keeps bodies of water a stable temperature and therefore allows basically Earth to maintain a stable temperature because the oceans maintain a stable temperature. The last property of water is that water is a universal solvent, so it's a polar substance. It will dissolve other polar substances, or like dissolves like, and water dissolves a bunch of stuff. So water acts as a solvent. A solvent is the substance that's doing the dissolving, so that would be water. The solute is the substance that's being dissolved. So water can dissolve sugar, water dissolves salt, and water dissolves a bunch of things that are also polar. Water does not dissolve oil because oil is a non-polar substance, and so therefore it has different properties than water has. So the main idea is that water is a polar molecule, and because of that polarity or the unequal distribution of charges, it contributes to all of the other properties of water that we see.